Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. Buckle up, as it's a long one, and don't forget to listen to the end of the story to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, guys, and please like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. A couple of years ago, my father fell ill. It was a sudden decline, and as his only son, I took on the responsibility of caring for him. My mother had passed away years earlier, and it was just the two of us. My wife, I call her my wife despite we are not legally married, Emma and I, had been married for 5 years at that point. We didn't have kids, and our life was pretty good, or so I thought. When my father's condition worsened, I decided to move in with him, managing his medicines, making sure he ate, and attending to his every need. My days were spent coordinating with doctors, and nights were often sleepless, listening to his labored breathing, ready to call for help at any moment. My wife was not thrilled about this arrangement. I can't say I blamed her entirely. We had been married for 5 years, and we were supposed to be in the prime of our lives, traveling, dining out, and experiencing the world together. Instead, I was spending every waking moment with my dying father. Emma felt neglected, and I was too absorbed in my father's care to notice the growing chasm between us. She tried to talk to me about it a few times, but I always brushed her off, thinking she would understand the gravity of the situation. I didn't realize how deeply she was affected by the lack of attention until one evening, after a particularly grueling day at the hospital, I came home to an empty house. There was a note on the kitchen counter. Quote, "I can't do this anymore. I need to live my life. I need to feel alive again. I'm sorry." I was devastated. Here I was, giving everything I had to my father, and my wife, the one person I thought would stand by me, was leaving. But I had to push through. I had to be strong for my dad. Months went by, and I dedicated myself entirely to my father's care. Emma and I had little contact. She seemed to be enjoying her newfound freedom, traveling and living it up. I tried to ignore the sting of betrayal and focused on my father. Sadly, he passed away after a year of battling his illness. It was the hardest moment of my life. After the funeral, I was busy with the aftermath and handling my father's estate. I hadn't expected to receive much from the will. My dad was a frugal man, and while we were comfortable, he never seemed to have an excessive amount of wealth. However, after the reading of the will, I was stunned to learn that my father had left me millions. He had been saving and investing wisely, and it all paid off in the end. Not long after the will reading, Emma reached out. She wanted to meet and talk. Against my better judgment, I agreed. She apologized for leaving and said she missed me. She wanted to work things out. I was skeptical, but still in love with her, so I decided to give it another shot. I assumed she didn't know about the inheritance because she never mentioned it. As we started to rebuild our relationship, Emma was overly eager to know about my plans for the future. She wanted to talk about our dreams, vacations, and buying a house. It all felt too good to be true, and I started to have doubts about her sudden change of heart. One day, I bumped into one of Emma's friends, Jessica. She seemed genuinely happy to see me and asked how I was doing. After a bit of small talk, she mentioned how glad she was that Emma and I were back together. I must have looked puzzled because she quickly added, "Yeah, Emma told me she realized how much she missed you after she heard about the inheritance. It's great that you guys are working things out." My blood ran cold. So that was it. Emma had come back for the money. It wasn't about love or regret. It was about the millions my father had left me. I felt like an idiot for not seeing it sooner. That evening, I confronted Emma. I told her what Jessica had said and demanded the truth. She tried to deny it at first, but eventually she admitted it. She said she realized she made a mistake leaving me and thought the inheritance was a sign that we should be together. I was furious. I told her it was over and to get out of my house. She cried and begged, but I was done. I couldn't stay with someone who valued money over our relationship. Soon after, I received a letter from a lawyer. Emma is suing me for a portion of the inheritance, claiming she had a right to it since she was my common-law partner and had supported me during my father's illness. I couldn't believe it. She had left me when I needed her most, and now she wanted to take what my father had left me? I'm still in shock and in disbelief that I spent so many years with such a person and never knew or saw who she truly is. I was so blind. Update. As I mentioned before, Emma was suing me for a portion of the inheritance my father left me. Her argument was that she had a right to it since she was my common-law partner and had supported me during my father's illness. This was incredibly ironic given that she had left me when I needed her most. Despite this, the lawsuit was dragging on, and it was both emotionally and financially draining. I was determined not to let her have a cent, but the stress of the legal battle was taking its toll. My lawyer was confident we would win, but the process was slow and painful. I couldn't believe that someone I had once loved and trusted could turn against me so viciously. But one day after court, I popped into a coffee shop, trying to clear my head and get away from the legal drama. As I waited for my order, I noticed my wife's friend Jessica sitting alone at a corner table. We had met a few times at family gatherings and parties, so I decided to say hello. She looked up, recognized me, and invited me to join her. We chatted for a while about life, and eventually, the conversation drifted to Emma and the lawsuit. I complained to her how hurt I was about Emma's actions, and how not fair it is for her to demand money my father left me after she left me to take care of him alone. Jessica seemed genuinely concerned about how I was holding up. She mentioned that she had always thought Emma was too focused on herself and never truly appreciated what we had. I appreciated her empathy, but didn't want to badmouth Emma too much. However, as we talked more, Jessica suddenly leaned in and said, "There's something you should know." I was curious and a bit apprehensive. That's when she dropped the bombshell. Emma had a deep, dark secret that her family had no idea about. Before Emma and I got together, she had slept with her sister's husband. This affair had nearly torn their family apart when it was briefly suspected, but Emma and her brother-in-law managed to keep it hidden. If her parents ever found out, it would destroy her relationship with them and her sister, and she would likely be disowned and left out of their inheritance. I asked Jessica why she was telling me this now. She sighed and explained that she felt sorry for me and that she never approved of Emma's actions, but had kept quiet out of loyalty. However, seeing Emma's behavior during the lawsuit, suing me for money she didn't deserve, had changed her perspective. "I've seen how much you've suffered," Jessica said. "You didn't deserve any of this, especially after everything you did for your father. Emma needs to face the consequences of her actions. She just can't manipulate people and get away with it." Jessica's revelations gave me a newfound sense of power. It was normally questionable, but I felt justified in using this information to protect myself and my father's legacy. So I decided to confront Emma one last time. We met in a neutral location, and I told her point blank that if she didn't stop the lawsuit, I would reveal her secret to her parents. I made it clear that this wasn't an idle threat. I knew her parents well enough to understand how they would react. They would cut her off completely. Emma's face turned pale. She knew I had the upper hand. I wasn't proud of resorting to blackmail, but I felt justified given everything she had put me through. She tried to argue, to call my bluff, but I stood firm. A few days later, Emma's lawyer contacted mine to inform us that she was dropping the lawsuit. The relief I felt was immense. Finally, I could begin to move on without the constant stress and uncertainty hanging over me. Emma tried to reach out a few more times, attempting to negotiate or find some middle ground, but I made it clear that I wanted nothing to do with her. I blocked her from all communication channels and focused on rebuilding my life. With the lawsuit behind me, I've been able to concentrate on my new relationship and my own healing. It's been a challenging journey, but I'm slowly finding peace and happiness again. My new partner is supportive and kind, and values me for who I am, not what I have. Reflecting on everything, I realize that sometimes we have to take drastic measures to protect ourselves from those who seek to harm us. I don't regret what I did, because it was necessary to preserve my father's legacy and my own well-being. Thank you guys for listening to me venting and for the support. Wow, what a ride. Well, I think OP did the right thing blackmailing Emma, because she was in the wrong in all this situation. It's a shame he had to take those actions, but I guess he had no other choice. Can you imagine being left by your closest person when your father is on the deathbed? I think she is a heartless and cruel person. Well, her having an affair with her sister's husband only proves that. OP learned the hard way, but he was lucky he met Jessica, and she helped him in this situation. Looks like good always wins over evil, no matter the odds. And now let's hear the community's opinion. OP, you did what you had to do. Sometimes people push us to our limits, and we have to fight back. It's clear Emma was only after your money, and you protected yourself and your father's legacy. Wishing you all the best as you move forward. You deserve happiness and peace. It's unfortunate that it came to this, but Emma left you no choice. She had no right to the inheritance and tried to manipulate the situation to her advantage. Good on you for standing your ground and using what you had to protect yourself. Onwards and upwards. Sometimes tough situations require tough decisions. You did what you needed to do to protect yourself from someone who clearly had no qualms about exploiting you. It's great to hear you're moving on and finding happiness. Stay strong, OP. Backstory. I am 7.5 months pregnant with my first child after having 3 miscarriages in the last 4 years. My fiancé and I have kept my pregnancy a secret from both of our families until we were told by my doctor that everything looked perfect and I wasn't likely to miscarry again. When we did finally announce our big news to our families, everyone was shocked, in a good way, and very supportive, except for my sister Kate. We found out she was also pregnant, but hadn't said anything either, so she immediately lashed out at us and my mother because we ruined her pregnancy announcement. I did apologize to her as I felt bad, but I told her that her pregnancy would still be just as special and everyone was even more excited about 2 new babies in the family. But she wouldn't hear it. She didn't speak to me for about a month. When she did finally talk to me again, she acted as if her freakout had never happened, so I just let it slide by. She's been a bit dramatic since we were children, and it usually blows over, and she just acts like it didn't happen at all. At this point, I was at almost 5 months, and we would be finding out the gender of our baby soon. She was at 3 months, and asked what I thought I was having. I just told her I think it's a boy, but who could know? And she flipped. She called me to scream at me, saying she deserves to have a boy. I can just have a girl and deal with it. I was baffled. I didn't understand why it was such a big deal to her, but eventually calmed her down enough to get off the phone and go about my day. Once I had gotten off to work, I noticed she had messaged again. You had better wait until we find out the gender of our baby to announce yours, so you don't ruin that too. I responded, saying I didn't mind waiting to tell her side of the family. She's my half-sister. But that we planned on telling his family and my mother's side of the family when we found out. My God, I have never been called as many nasty names by anyone other than that in my life. She even turned the rest of my family, through her side, against me, saying that I was trying to ruin her entire pregnancy. So I stopped talking to them for a while. I couldn't deal with the stress, and it made me an emotional wreck because that part of my family now hated me. The only one who took my side was my stepmother, bless her. A couple more weeks passed, and it was finally time to find out what we were having. Yay! The day we had my ultrasound, we told everyone, including my stepmom, and she let it slip to my sister that I was indeed having a boy. Kate continued not to speak to me. Now, recently, she's found out she is having a baby girl, and I'm excited for her, but I won't talk to her at all now. I've had to block her on all my social media and her phone number because she was blowing up my phone with hateful messages, calling me a B and a useless C because I got her boy, and that I deserve to lose this baby too for being a terrible person and ruining her pregnancy, and leaving voicemails and messages saying how much she hopes my baby dies. I've now accepted that I may never be able to be part of that part of my family again because of this. I think even if I wanted to do that, I could never forgive her for being so hateful. Side note, I have worked in retail and food service for 5 years and never been treated so badly. I never thought that someone in my own family could be so nasty and entitled over something I couldn't even control. Well, you could always show them the text about her being crazy about all this. It may help some of them to understand that it's not you. I did try, but only one of my younger brothers believed me. Everyone else still believes her and thinks that I'm just trying to one-up her and steal her thunder. I know it's horrible the way she is acting, and it's sad that you may never have a relationship again, but she threatened your baby's life. Like, she knows how much suffering you both have gone through to have your baby, and she literally wished that you would lose his life. I don't know about you, but even if she tries to reconcile with you after her crazy rage, I would not be able to tolerate her after threatening you and your baby's life. Not to mention, I'd be scared that she would do something to your little one. An example would be if your little one had an allergy to a certain food, peanuts. She would feed your little one a peanut product. I just wouldn't trust her ever again. I would totally show all the hurtful messages and a threatening of the baby's life to that side of the family. And if they still side with her, then they are baby K's too. Good riddance to get rid of them and their toxicity. When my husband, 30 male, and I, 25 female, were dating, She seemed nice enough. He is Hispanic, I am white, and my mother is an immigrant, Germany. I thought she was very overbearing and obsessive about her son, but I was told by a lot of my friends that it's common with the culture, so I didn't really think anything of it at the time. But it got so much worse when we got engaged. When he told her we were engaged, she took us out to dinner. She was still acting all nice, but it was off. The minute my husband left the table to go to the restroom, she cracked. She asked what I wanted to do with my life. Common, right? I told her I wanted to be a dermatologist. She then said, "My son wants to be in the military, and you want to be a doctor? That will never work." I work in a hospital, and I see doctors getting divorced all the time. You're going to cheat on him, just like every military spouse does, and you're never going to see each other, and I don't want that life for my son. You'd best leave him now before you get his hopes up. I was seething. You see, his dad was military, and she pretty much ruined his entire life, and I could see she was going to try the same with me. I'm not going to get into that though, because it's an entirely different story. To sum it up, she got him dishonorably discharged on a lie. He is in the process of getting it all reversed because one of the people involved confessed to it being a lie. I kept my mouth shut at first, but she kept going and wouldn't drop it. Eventually, I couldn't hold it anymore. I told her, just because you did all of that doesn't mean I will. She started screaming at me and then saw my husband was coming back to the table. Then put on her nice face. He wasn't aware of what happened, and I didn't tell him for quite a while. He was leaving for basic military training in a month, and I didn't want to stress him out. Fast forward to when we got married. We didn't have a ceremony, but his mom still showed up. We already had our witnesses for signing stuff. He explicitly told her not to come because we would have a ceremony later. She showed up anyway, with his 3 uncles and abuelita, who did not know that we didn't want any family there. We had to limit it to us and our 2 witnesses. We chose to have our closest friends to be our witnesses, his best bro and my college roommate. Judge guy said that mother-in-law and fam couldn't be in the room, and she fought him to the point he just let her and fam in. She tried to sit between husband and I, and the judge guy drew the line there and literally had to tell her to find another seat. She tried to sit between husband and I, and the judge guy drew the line there and literally had to tell her to find another seat. She eventually moved, but this did not stop her from sitting between us for every single picture my roommate took. She was a photography major and said, "It's still a wedding, you need pictures." 5 days after we got married, he went to basic military training. His mom continued to harass me. Fast forward to his graduation, and it was worse. She tried to sit with me for the spouse briefing or whatever, and a military guy had to tell her to leave. She tried to come with me to another special spouse thing, and had to be told to leave that as well. She constantly tried to tell me I didn't care throughout the ceremony, and even said she would bet money we won't last a year. This graduation happened the same week as my finals week for college. I was tired, I was stressed, and I was graduating the week after. She was making everything awful, but I put on a face for my husband cause he was super proud of himself and I didn't want to ruin his graduation. Fast forward to when he got sent to tech school. My parents were pushing me to move out because I was married and stuff. Reasonable. Husband secured base housing for me, and we were going through the moving shindig. He could not help because tech school. My dad helped a lot and got everything together at his house. Husband had some stuff at his mom's house he wanted, so I scheduled with her to have my dad and I come get his stuff. All during this moving stuff, she kept asking my dad a lot of questions about me and gossiping and stuff. My dad was military, and he doesn't have a filter. He told her either get out of my way and shut up or start packing, among other things. She did not like this. Fast forward to when she came to visit at our base after tech school. I heard her talking garbage about me to Abuelita, about how I took her son away and poisoned him, or whatever. He had started standing up to her BS because his dad told him what happened and he got pissed. For whatever reason, grandmothers have always loved me. Abuelita slapped her, and for whatever reason, grandmothers have always loved me. Abuelita slapped her and told her to essentially get her head out of her butt. I figured maybe this would actually help her stop the nonsense. It did not. She started talking garbage about me to my husband and started calling my workplace. I work at a college in administration. She started calling my work, saying I was violating policies and being rude and all kinds of stuff. This led to a sit-down with my boss and the big boss. I also had to have a discussion with HR. I was suspended while they did a bit of an investigation. When they decided that it couldn't have been true, they talked to me again and got my full side of the story. Luckily, they believed me, but that didn't make her stop. However, it still looked really bad because they have to make a report every single time. This could ruin my career. Fast forward to now. My husband got orders to a new base. We are going overseas. Now she is pretending to be nice, saying stuff like, "Oh, I can't wait to visit you," and all that. My husband is saying that maybe she's getting better. She's not. She gave him wrong advice on what to do, and now we're having to do a lot of stuff last minute that we should have gotten done months ago. I told him to double check with his people, but he didn't, and there's only so much I could do on my end. Luckily, we're getting it together and it's working out. If we hadn't, it would have ruined his career. I literally have no idea on how to get her to leave us alone and be normal, I guess, rather than psychotic. I eventually told him about the conversation in the restaurant, and he wasn't surprised. He asked if that was why I gave up on medical school. It wasn't. I had a lot of medical stuff come up and had a change of career choice. I couldn't have survived the stress, literally. So yeah, lots of fun. Edit to add. I blocked her on every social media platform not long after she started giving him false advice and stuff about the move. Probably should have mentioned that. And we are both planning on going to therapy for a variety of reasons, individual and couples. We're hoping that the therapy helps us better establish boundaries and stuff. Wow, lots to unpack here. That's no way to live. It sounds miserable. It's not your place to put her in line. It's your husband's place. She needs firm boundaries. You and your husband really need counseling to figure this out. If your husband doesn't want to go, you should go alone. Also, think about your future together if he decides not to go to counseling to figure this out with you. You don't want to bring children into a marriage where your mother-in-law is sabotaging your parenting or turning your kids and husband against you. You need to stop covering up for mother-in-law to your husband. Y'all need to drop the rope and kick her out of your lives, really. She won't get better and never will. Time to move on with your lives.